Okay, but we're all here now, so we can go ahead and we'll call it to order. We'll begin with a land acknowledgement. The Missoula County acknowledges. Oh, there's a terrible echo. Maybe folks can mute and turn off your videos. Violet, are you able to do that for folks?
Yep.
Okay. Missoula County acknowledges that this event takes place in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. And now, if you'll join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
Okay. And we have proclamation for Black History Month. Ooh, you see, there's Josh.
I am. I was spinning in some ephemeral.
No worries. One of you want to read the proclamation?
I'm looking for it. So here we go. I'm happy to do it. Okay. Whereas in 1915, Harvard-trained historian Carter G. Woodson and the prominent minister Jesse E. Moreland founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, known today as the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ASALH, dedicated to researching and promoting achievements by Black Americans and other people of African descent. And whereas in 1926, the ASALH sponsored a National Negro History Week in the second week of February, intentionally chosen because it fell between the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. And whereas in the following decades, mayors of cities across the United States began issuing yearly proclamations recognizing Negro History Week. And whereas due largely to the contributions of the Civil Rights Movement and a growing awareness of Black identity, President Ford in 1976 officially recognized Black History Month, urging the public to, quote, seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. And whereas Missoula County recognizes that Montana currently has the smallest percentage of people who identify as Black or African American in the United States, reflecting the complexity of Montana's Black history. And whereas Missoula County recognizes Montana's own Black history is complex, spanning from the arrival of the first documented enslaved Africans in 1805 as part of the Lewis and Clark expedition into the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. The publication of Montana's first Black newspaper, The Colored Citizen, in 1894, to the election of Geraldine Travis, the first African-American woman elected to the Montana legislature in 1974, and the election of the state's first Black mayor, Wilmot Collins, in 2017. And whereas in Missoula County, the percentage of our residents who identify as Black or African-American is 0.6, highlighting the importance of the preservation of Black history culture in our community. And whereas Montana's Black history is reflected in Missoula throughout the bravery and valor displayed by the 25th Infantry Bicycle Corps, the United States' first unit of Black soldiers formed in 1896 to test the combat viability of bicycles, including an over 1,900-mile ride from Fort Missoula to St. Louis, Missouri, in 1896, wrap your mind around that. Whereas other examples of Missoula's enduring Black history can be found on the 1400 block of Phillip Street, where St. Paul African American Methodist Episcopal Church, Missoula's first Black church, stood from 1910 to 1946, and whose congregants built a community and pursued racial equity with neighbors regardless of race in the face of threats from the KKK and other white supremacist organizations. And whereas Missoula County is proud to join the state of Montana in recognizing the accomplishments and contributions of Black Americans who are part of the fabric of our nation here in Montana, from throughout history to today. Now, therefore, be it resolved, we, Missoula County, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2022 Black History Month. There you go.
Thank you, Josh. Is there any public comment items not on this agenda? Okay, our current claims list received as of February 3rd to February 15th is $3,482,179.04. We have 6 hearings today, and it's kind of packed. So we'll have our presentations be brief, and then public comment, if you just limit it to 3 minutes, that would be great. And Violet will help manage the time. Our first one is a CPACE resolution to adopt. Diana Mineta.
Thank you, commissioners. This is a final resolution to adopt a CPACE program for Missoula County. Just as a quick reminder, this is a program that gives commercial property owners the opportunity to make energy conservation and renewable energy improvements to their properties and pay those back through an assessment on their property taxes. The commission approved a resolution of intent to create a CPACE program at your public meeting 2 weeks ago following a public hearing. And this final resolution is the final step in the process to allow commercial property owners to move ahead and participate in the program. I did give a presentation on it 2 weeks ago. I was not planning to repeat the presentation. We do have Tyler Gurnett here, as well as I believe Seth Lutter with the Montana Facility Finance Authority to answer any additional questions there might be. Tyler, did you want to add anything?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Diana.
Seth, is there anything that you'd like to add? Is there any public comment or questions on CPACE?
Juan, today,
Yep, go ahead.
just because it seems like there is almost no good news out there, I would love to talk about CPACE because it's such a cool thing. And I'm also aware that we have 6 things on the agenda, and some of them are really big, and we need to go home at the end of the day. So suffice to say, I'm super excited about CPACE in our community, really grateful that Tyler put in the years of diligence to grind this thing over the finish line, and thanks to the cooperation of the state too. So with that, I'm thrilled where we are with this.
That almost sounded like a motion.
That's a motion. Let's make CPACE happen.
Okay, I will second it and just say that likewise, this is a super positive step forward. It's been something that's been in the work for many years. As Commissioner Slotnick mentioned, thank you to the state and the state legislature for actually helping get this over the finish line. And it's great to see Missoula County out at on the tip of the spear here, getting it implemented in the state of Montana.
Absolutely. Okay, first and second, any further public comment? Thanks so much, Tyler and Diana. Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Let her in.
Said we were going to have champagne and confetti, but we don't have time for that today. But
Yeah, hopefully this meeting can talk to Tyler after this.
exactly.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Matt Heimel with Vandervoort Family Transfer.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Matt Heimel here with Community Planning Services. I'll share my screen. I have a very brief PowerPoint for this family transfer request. Is the screen share showing on your end, Commissioners?
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So this is a request from Alfred and Rebecca Vandervoort to utilize a family transfer exception to create and transfer one parcel to an immediate family member. The immediate family member or intended recipient is Hannah Tester, the claimant's adult daughter. So, as I said, the claimant is Halford and Rebecca Vandervoort, and the representative is Joshua Phillips with Eli and Associates. So this is a broader aerial image. The property is located at 11882 KDN Lane. That's in the Y community area off Fire Bucket Loop. and this property is about 1 mile northwest of the intersection of Waldo Road and Highway 93. There we go. Oh, sorry. So here's a closer aerial image showing the existing conditions. The property is about 5.7 acres, and it's currently developed with 1 single-family residence and looks like a couple accessory structures. It has direct access off Katie Ann Lane, and the proposed tract would have also access off Katie Ann and Leishman Lane, and all tracts would be served by individual well and septic. So here's another image showing the existing conditions with the building envelope. The property is unzoned. It is described in our 2019 land use element, which was an amendment to the 2016 growth policy. And the land use designation for this location is rural residential and agriculture. And the recommended density in that land use is between 1 dwelling units per 10 acres and 1 dwelling unit per 2 acres. So this proposal would result in a density of 1 unit per 2.85 acres. So it is compliant with the growth policy. And as I said, it is unzoned. It was created in 2002 through a family transfer exemption, just for a little bit of the tract history. So here is a layout showing the proposed conditions. So the eastern half of the tract would continue to be the residence of the claimant's daughter, Hannah Tester, and the intended recipient. The tract to the west will be vacant at first, would be retained in ownership by the claimant, and is the intended site for a retirement home for the claimant. You can see there's a little call out for approximate future building site. So with that overview, I do have our standard family transfer questions for the claimant or the representative, and I did see that they are on the call.
So I guess that's we're Halford and Rebecca Vandevord, the claimants.
Okay, thank you. So I have 5 questions for you. Question 1, did you buy the property with the intent of dividing it?
We did not.
Thank you. Question 2, do you or your transferees intend to transfer the property within the next year?
We do not.
Thank you. Third question, have you talked with anyone at the county about going through subdivision review?
No.
Thanks. Fourth question, will the property be developed?
Yes.
That's the long-term plan, yes.
Okay, and my last question is, will the recipient of the property be residing on the property?
Yes.
Yes.
That would be us.
Okay, thank you. So, commissioners, that concludes my presentation of the questions. Staff is recommending approval of this request. I will note that the only evasion criteria this did trigger was that the parcel was originally created through a family transfer exemption in 2002, but in our records, the claimant has no connection to that prior exemption.
Thanks, Matt. Well, would the applicant or developer representative want to say anything? Is Joshua Phillips or Rebecca Halford?
We can answer any questions.
It looks like Joshua's raising his hand.
I was waving hello.
Okay.
We don't have any additional comments unless the commissioners have questions.
Don't see anything from Josh or Dave yet. Is there any public comment? On this, I see a hand, but Violet, I can't quite
It's Gene Curtis.
see who it is. Okay.
Yeah, hello, commissioners, this is Jean Curtis.
Hi,
I'd like
Jean.
to make comment.
Yes.
So I'm very familiar with this area. When I was commissioner, that was when the lawsuit came through about, requiring paving of those roads, because not only was this property created by family transfer, but almost all the property out there was. So there wasn't a lot of planning. So my concern is just I know that my son lives out there, and I know that the testers have talked with them. And in the past, it was said that they wouldn't have access from Katy Lane and Leishman Lane. So has that been cleared up? Because in the past, they wanted to access through Fire Bucket Loop, and that whole section, Fire Bucket really isn't a loop, and that section is in really, really bad shape. So I just wanted to make sure they had public access from the streets that make the most sense there. And then also, I just hope they know that water is really hard to find out there. So I hope they have luck getting a well. So my questions is in regard to access.
Thanks. So that would be Joshua or Matt. Do you want to answer that?
Commissioners, the only comment I have for this is that I do see in the application proposed access would be via Katy Ann Lane or Leishman Lane in the future that lead to Fire Bucket Loop. Fire Bucket Loop is, according to the property information system, a county maintained road. But otherwise, I do not have additional information at this time as to other access restrictions or requirements. And also,
this is Joshua Phillips with Eli and Associates. There is nothing in our proposal that would preclude proposed tract 52F from having access via Fire Bucket Loop. But the current plan is to access via the Leishman Lane easement that we've shown.
Thanks. Does that answer your question, Jean?
No, it does not, because I have actually looked at all those properties out there, looked at the access from the roads, and unless it's changed, what I read from Katy Ann and Leishman is they specifically state which lots have access. And so I don't believe that you have access from those other roads unless the other folks who live along there grant it. And don't they have to prove access? I mean, Fire Bucket is not developed there, so I don't know how they'll get there from Fire Bucket.
I thought that the access is from Leachman.
Well, they said that's what they're proposing, but if you look at the deed restrictions on those roads, they say to access, and they actually live. And I don't know that a second access, I'm not trying to stop this. I just want to make sure that these folks have, you know, an easy access to get there without being limited because of those deed restrictions on when those roads were developed. I think you should maybe delay until they can, or somebody needs to look at the deeds.
Confirm. So looking at Eli and Associates and Matt, you able to get a confirmation on this to make sure that access is viable?
This is Joshua with Eli and Associates. I have not seen anything that would inhibit this property from gaining access where we've shown it.
Okay.
Commissioner Matt Heimel here, just to add a couple pieces of information on the certificate of survey that created this tractor family transfer. I do see a private access easement for the benefit of this subject property, but I'm just not immediately seeing a deed restriction that precludes access. Not saying it doesn't exist, but I just don't immediately have that available. I'd also like to just point out that on our, with any subdivision exemption comes its inherent lack of review for legal and physical access. So we do have recording requirements on a certificate of survey that would state that a division of land is not reviewed for adequate legal and physical access. So it would behoove any claimant or property owners to make sure that they verified on their end if it is approved.
I just saw County Attorney John Hart. Do you have something to offer?
I was going to say exactly what Matt just said. Is our subdivision regulations require a statement on the certificate of survey that must be recorded to effectuate a family transfer that states explicitly this division of land was not reviewed for adequate legal and physical access, amongst other statements. So we don't review for that, but it's never a bad idea to put an applicant on notice that there may be issues.
So John, just to speak it really plainly, it's not on us.
So the Halfords, I see.
It's on the claimants if they're going to end up with a piece of property with no access, it's on them.
Correct. They're applying for this exemption from the Subdivision Act at their own risk.
Yes.
Okay, and I see Rebecca nodding.
Yes, we do understand that.
Looks like there are two potential access points.
Yeah,
At least.
and we are exploring those. We have talked to some neighbors. We haven't completed that because we didn't know if we'd even be able to do the family transfer, so.
And we need, I'm ready to make a motion at any point if there's no more public comment.
I just see one more hand up here. Jean, do you have one last one here?
I just, like I said, I have done a lot of research on this particular road, and there was also a lawsuit saying that the illegal subdivision folks that created it were supposed to gift land, or they were supposed to redo the, as you know, county roads go to the middle of the people actually own to the middle of the roads. They were supposed to change everybody's deeds. They did not. I guess my biggest concern is, like I said, I drive out there a lot because my son lives there, is that if they aren't able to get their access in the way that makes the most sense, which hopefully they can, is that all of any construction is all going to go right through my son's place, and that road, that whole 3/4 of a mile of that section of Fire Bucket was never paved because there are so few people on it and it cost too much. So the commissioners, when I was a commissioner, didn't make them do that. But that road is horrid. It's probably one of the worst roads in the county. So if they add construction to that, it's going to be hard on people. So I know that it's on these folks, and hopefully they'll have some neighbors that agree that adding one more house on that road is not a problem, but there is a big problem out there.
Thanks for that. Any further comment? Okay, we'll close public comment. Commissioners.
Okay, I would move that we approve the application by Halford and Rebecca Vandervoort to utilize the family transfer exemption to create and transfer one parcel to an immediate family member as presented in the subdivision exemption affidavit.
I'll second that.
Any further comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. And good luck.
Good luck, folks.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Bailey Minich with the Macintosh Manor, number 40 minor subdivision.
Yeah, give me 1 second to get my PowerPoint pulled up here and get everything set back so I can see you all. Can you guys see my screen? Hopefully it popped up. Awesome, perfect. Okay. So this is the Macintosh Manor number 40 subdivision request. The property, it's actually, so this is pulled out. Here's Lolo and Highway 12 way up here. We're way down here, not quite to the county line, but just short of that. And then I have a zoomed in portion here. So here is Rowan Street. The park and ride is right out here. There's these commercial businesses right here. And so up Rowan Street and way back here is where we're located at. The property, it is within the 2002 Lolo Regional Plan, and I'll get into this in a minute, but it's a rural residential designation of 1 dwelling unit per 10 acres is what's recommended. So here is our proposed preliminary plat, and bear with me, I realize it's not the best picture. Hopefully you guys were able to get into the packet and take a look at the full scale version of it, and it kind of faded out on here, but this is a 2-lot minor subdivision for residential use. It's on a total of 7.7 acres. There's an existing home located on the western side of the property here. It is currently served by individual septic system, and that's what they're proposing to continue. The access to the property, there's 2 places. So you have Highland Drive that comes in over here, and then this side, and this will really be the lot that I'm focusing on, the new lot, is access here off of Dundee Road. Right here's the corner of Sandy Drive and Dundee Road. They are asking for variances to a section of our subdivision regulations, one related to Highland Drive and one related to Dundee Road. And so I'll get into that here in a minute as well. So these are all the review criteria. I'm gonna touch on each one, but not go into a ton of detail unless you have questions. But instead of just staring at this wonderful slide full of words, I will let you stare at the zoomed in portion of the side that will have the new lot, so not the existing home side. Most of the information I have, conditions really are related to this side. So I zoomed into that one so you could see that a little bit better. But so first of all, the property, it is unzoned, so there is no minimum lot size out here. Both Highland Drive and Dundee Road are both within 40-foot wide dedicated public rights of way, but are not maintained by the county. This area out here is actually really unique in that these roads actually were platted back in 1913. They actually are platted county roads versus, like we talked about earlier, and it must be an access topic today, that most properties go to the center line. This is not the case out here in this area. As I said, it's part of the 2002 Lolo Regional Plan, has that rural residential designation of 1 dwelling unit per 10 acres recommended. They are proposing a residential density of 1 dwelling unit per 3.85 acres. So at this point, it is not compatible with the 2002 Lolo Regional Plan. However, according to state law, the subdivision cannot be denied based solely on lack of compliance with the growth policy or the land use plan. Can be one of the components, but it can't be the deciding factor of that. So the property has not been used for agricultural production. There's no current ag use occurring on the property. There are some larger parcels nearby that could be used for agricultural operations. So we are recommending that notification of agricultural practices be included in the proposed covenants as a condition of approval, just notifying future landowners that there could be things out there that are agricultural related. So the county subdivision regulations include standards for off-site roads that provide access to the subdivision, specifically for emergency access, traffic impacts. And this standard includes a 20-foot width and adequate horizontal and vertical clearance. This is the section and I can specific 3.4.7.5.c.1 for the public record that they are requesting a variance from. So specific to Dundee Road, which is on, oops, sorry, I lost my mouse here, which side it is. This side over here, if you can see my cursor, this is Dundee Road. That is currently at 14 feet in width. They are requesting to maintain that and stay at 14 feet. Generally, we support the requested variance due to existing topography. There's this woody draw that I'll talk about here in a minute as well. There's no access to additional lots further to the south in the adjacent Painted Sky subdivision. However, based on comment received from the fire department, Missoula Rural Fire District, we are recommending a condition of approval that Dundee Road from the intersection with Sandy Drive would be a minimum 16 feet in width for drivable access for emergency services. It's not the full 20, but it's not the 14 that they're requesting. We're asking for 16. The applicant again is asking that same variance specific to Highland Drive on the other side and not improve that existing roadway to the 20 feet. That one is currently at 16 feet and so would remain. And so we are supporting that requested variance due to the impact that widening the road would have on adjacent properties, including removal of mature trees, altering existing driveways, and that the home would be located at the very end of Highland Drive with no increase to traffic proposed. Minor subdivisions are not required to have pedestrian facilities per our subdivision regulations. As I said, they will include individual septic systems for each lot. They are proposing one new well drilled to serve this new home. And the DNRC obviously review existing water rights for the subject property. They did comment that the subdivision is considered within their limits and may be developable without a beneficial water use permit. They did a site evaluation in July of 2021. No high groundwater was present in any of the sites monitored on the property. The subdivision regulations also exempt minor subdivisions from the parkland dedication requirements, so that's not a condition of the subdivision. The fire hazard assessment completed for the property returned a score of 49, which does indicate a moderate risk for fire hazard on this property. And the 2018 Community Wildfire Protection Plan depicts the property within the high wildfire hazard area. And if you guys remember here back in 2017, there actually was a low peak fire that wasn't very far from this property and is actually still visible out there. So staff is recommending a condition of approval that all residential structures are constructed with Class A fire rated roofing materials, and that would actually be included in the proposed covenants as well. They have chosen the installation of fire sprinkler systems for new residential structures as part of their proposed fire suppression plan. Let's see. Okay. Missoula Rural Fire Department did comment on the draft subdivision. They recommended some changes to the covenant language regarding addresses, address signs, driveway construction. They did also comment that they consider Dundee Road a road and not a driveway, and therefore would need to comply with county road standards for turnaround requirements, etc. The property is surrounded by residential development, so no additional impacts to wildlife is anticipated. They are proposing within the draft covenants the living with wildlife information that was provided by Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. We didn't have any comments from Fish, Wildlife, and Parks on the application. There is this woody draw here. Sorry, it's hard to see. So this area right here is an existing woody draw that extends west to east across this proposed lot 40B. They have submitted a riparian resource management plan for this area that delineates the riparian buffer or the riparian resource area and a 10-foot wide riparian buffer around the perimeter. We are recommending a condition of approval that this area be labeled as a no-build zone on the final plat itself, and that riparian resource management plan is attached to the covenants as an exhibit so that any future lot owner is able to find that very easily. We had comment received from Five Valley Audubons, basically talking about this woody draw and that it does deserve consideration for some protection. So they are proposing that. The property doesn't contain any floodplain. There's no areas of slopes over 25% or greater. We did, since this is a minor subdivision, we notify the adjacent property owners within 300 feet of the property. That notice was sent out on February 2nd. There's no legal notice or any sign that has to get posted on the property. We've had no comments on the proposed subdivision at this time. And so let me go to the next one. So these are the two variants. It's the same section, but they're the variances that I had mentioned earlier that we're talking about Dundee Road and Highland Drive. And I was going to show you, so here's the one on Dundee Road, kind of in that bubble area where we're talking about. So this is actually the new subdivision lot here. This is the adjacent property to the north. And so this is the area that's the offsite section that we're actually talking about here. And then the same goes for Highland Drive. So here's the existing home on the property. Here's existing Highland Drive and the area that they are asking for the variance to. One note I will make as far as my conditions. So my condition number 11 that I had in the report, it talks about the road. One of the things we were proposing was, so when I went out and did my site visit, and I'll go to the next picture here. This is my picture on this side. I was obviously, you can see where the neighbor has plowed for their driveway. So I was not able to actually get to the subject property on the Dundee side of the road. So because of that, I was not able to show that they actually they have legal access because of the road right-of-way that's platted out there, but they didn't have physical access to be able to get to the site. So I was proposing a condition that the upgrade to Dundee Drive would not be allowed to have any SIA or any bonding for upgrading that road, because we do require physical access to the lot. Like if somebody's buying this lot, they need to be able to physically get to it without having, to upgrade it themselves. So that's where I was proposing in my condition 11. But Jenna at Missoula Engineering, they were able to provide pictures from before it got really snowy out there, showing that you actually can drive to it. It is physically able to drive out there. It might not be upgraded to the standard that we want it to for a county road, but you can actually get to that side of the property. So because of that, I am recommending on my condition number 11 that last portion of a portion of the last sentence be struck, that basically limits or removes the requirement that it can't be bonded for. So they would be able to submit an SIA request for the upgrading of Dundee Road. And I think that's the last information I have. And I do have some recommended motions. You would need to make a motion for each of the variances, one specific to Dundee, one specific to Highland Drive, and then obviously the main motion for the subdivision as well. And I know Missoula Engineering, Jenna, I saw was on the line, if you don't have more questions for me at this time.
Yeah, Jenna, do you want to?
Yeah, hi commissioners. First, I'd like to thank Bailey for all of her work on this project. There's been a lot of back and forth and coordination. We do generally agree with all the proposed conditions of approval, except condition of approval number 11, regarding the requirement that Dundee Road be improved to county road standards. Bailey, if you don't mind pulling up my proposed language change.
Yeah, give me 1 second here.
So as the condition states, right now we're being required to upgrade Dundee Road to a 16-foot wide gravel road. And we would like to amend that to be a 16-foot wide gravel driveway. And the main difference is the construction requirements regarding this. And we're making this request for several reasons. First, like Bailey mentioned, this right-of-way was originally done back in 1913 as part of Macintosh Manor. And just the development patterns and road networks have changed since that was originally platted. And this area just does not see that type of use or demand. Secondly, Bailey also noted there's a steep woody draw on the eastern portion of the subdivision. And in coordination with Five Valley Audubon, we delineated that as a riparian area. And this woody draw actually crosses this existing right-of-way and continues on through the property to the east. And they've also dedicated that riparian area as a no-build zone. So as such, a future connection of Dundee Drive down to Lamar Trail would require the partial destruction of this riparian area. And it's just very unlikely that this corridor is ever going to see that connection and therefore ever see an increase in use or access that would justify improving this access to a county road standard. Our proposed 16-foot driveway will meet the requirements for fire and emergency access standards, and it would sufficiently provide continued, safe, year-round access to this proposed new lot. Additionally, these emergency access standards are already outlined in condition of approval number 10. So our proposed driveway would be required to adhere to those regulations. So we understand the intent of the regulation and why CAP's made this requirement, but we are requesting that condition of approval be amended based on, the specific circumstances surrounding the property and the proposed development.
Okay, so Jenna, if I understand, you're saying you're asking to keep it 14 feet as it is, and it's going to turn to the east well before right now it goes right to the woody draw, but it's going to change or turn instead of going to the woody draw?
Well, I thought you said it would stay 16 feet.
Correct.
Oh,
so we're okay with the width of 16 feet. So where Sandy Drive and Dundee Road kind of meet at that 90-degree corner north of our property.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
We're just requesting from Sandy Drive down to our north property line. We're happy to increase the road width to 16 feet. But the difference is the verbiage of road versus driveway. We want it to be a driveway. The county road standards for actually installing a road require, engineered road design plans, review and approval by county public works. Like, this access way is accessing the existing home to the north and our proposed new home. Like, it's a shared driveway. The requirement to improve this to county road standards is just above and beyond the type of use that this access way is going to see.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And Bailey, how does that sit with CAPS? Is that livable?
Yeah. Sorry, my auto thing was down. So the way our subdivision regulations read and the way the Public Works Manual, which after reading the Public Works Manual, the subdivision regulations, right, are the first thing, then the Public Works Manual. But both of them state that if 2 or more units or lots are accessing from it, then it's basically considered a road for subdivision purposes. So that's why we have the condition that it be looked at as a road, as well as that it's in a public road right of way. It's not maintained by the county, right? The county doesn't maintain the roads out here, but they are platted, public rights of way that are out there. So that's why we have it that set up, the condition set up that way.
So Bailey, can I ask Bailey a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So Bailey, let's say 10 years from now, maybe other folks are involved and they say, yeah, that woody draw is real sweet and all, but we want to punch this road through because there's gonna be other houses over on the other side. What happens if that scenario I just outlined occurs and we had said this thing is a driveway, not a road? Who at that point would be responsible for bringing this thoroughfare up to county road standards?
My gut would say it would be the county because it's in a county platted right of way, and therefore, that's the thing. The county could go out tomorrow and say, we want to punch this road through and we're going to do a road. It's our right of way. I know Shane would probably have some things to say as well about that, but that's the thing. In this situation, it's a very unique place because normally we don't have these platted road right of way. Like, it's not an easement. It is dedicated, area that is county owned.
Is there any sort of protective tool these folks could do around the woody draw such that a road couldn't be punched through it and it would just have to end there and be a right of way? Or that
I
means
don't
vacating
think
the right of way. It
so.
would be a street
Yeah.
road right of way vacation.
Yeah, it would be a road vacating that road right of way out there. Yeah, because it's not technically on their property. You know what I mean? It's actually platted. So.
Juanita, I have a couple questions,
Yep.
if that's okay. So this might be for Shane, or it could be for Bailey, or it could be for John Hart, for that matter. Can you think of any examples where we have allowed for a driveway to exist within a public road, platted public road right of way?
So,
You know, I can't think. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, sorry, Dave. As you guys are discussing this, and I don't know if it's the same situation, but I don't know if you recall our discussions on the subdivision that was happening on North Avenue, where we had talked about, the need to pave, 14 or 15 feet rather than like the 24-foot width, kind of out where North Dead ends. And so I think that comes to mind as the example that's similar to this. I don't know, Eric, if you have thoughts on it, or John as well.
I don't. I don't know if John would have an opinion, but I can't think of many off the top of my head examples. But I would have to say I'm sure that it exists. Actually, maybe one that comes up would be out in Clinton. We had someone build a driveway in a dedicated road, and it wasn't an issue that I recall. I mean, it is for the public to use. If there is ever the need for an improvement, as the example was given, what if someone comes in later and then it actually does become a road? I would think it's that second person that has to come in and make that improvement. I don't know if John or anyone else would agree. That would just be my interpretation.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's a key question here.
John?
What exactly is the question?
My question is there a precedent for or examples of driveways and allowing for a driveway to exist in a county platted public right of way?
And then can I add a part B to that? Maybe John can take both of them on. So if such a thing as Dave is describing exists, and later on, after the date that this hypothetical driveway is created, new owners on the far side of the driveway build some houses and need to turn this driveway into an actual road. At that point, who's on the hook for upgrading the driveway to the road? Is it, as Bailey pointed out, the county's responsibility, or would it be the new homeowner's responsibility who's desiring and needing this driveway to be upgraded to a road? Or is it the older residents who put in the driveway where there should have been a road? Who's on the hook for the upgrade?
Well, first I'll try to tackle is there a precedent for a driveway being built or existing within a county public road right of way? And the answer is I'm sure there is, but I couldn't give you a specific example. Well, maybe I can. Marshall Canyon Road, we know because we've talked about that within the last 12 months. That's a public right-of-way established years ago. And towards the very end of it, it's the Marshall Canyon property that is accessed. And so the road, essentially becomes the driveway into the Marshall Canyon property. And the right-of-way, however, extends all the way to the boundary of the Forest Service land to the north, but it isn't otherwise developed and maintained. That may not be the best example, but that would be the example that we would have, is where one property owner lives at the very end of the county right-of-way, but they're the only ones that use it to get to their house. So it's their de facto driveway to their house. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if somebody came up, and maybe Marshall Canyon Road isn't the best example, but let's just say, the Forest Service parceled out a piece of their property to the north at the end of the county right-of-way, and somebody wanted to develop that property, then even though it's county right-of-way, the county doesn't have the responsibility under Montana law to actually improve and maintain that right-of-way to their house. And in that case, if somebody wanted to use that public right-of-way as legal and physical access to their property, they could not force Missoula County to develop the road to get to their property. It would essentially be up to them to make those improvements. However, Missoula County could require that they be built to public works standards. So that's, does that give any insight to the questions?
Yeah, I think so.
Look,
And
go ahead, Bailey.
oh, I was just gonna say one thing, you know, that is in, you know, a pro side to Missoula Jenna's argument or request to do that. As you're talking about, you know, accessing off of it, you know, really there's this lot here. I don't know if you can see my little pointer. Let me put it back on. So, you know, this is the subdivision lot here. There's this existing home here. The lot that would be in this corner way down here actually abuts Lamar Trail to the south. Actually, maybe let me go to a different picture here. Sorry, bear with me as I screenshot. Here you go. So this is the subject parcel, right? We're talking about this section of the road here. So this lot here, you know, accesses from Lamar Trail. They, you know, that's where their physical and legal physical access is off of. This is really the only lot that I can see that potentially could connect. Now, granted, talking about upgrading, you know, if they were to subdivide, you know, that could be the same requirement that we would say, right? You'd have to upgrade the road. You're asking to deviate. You're asking to do something more than just build your house. But if they were just to come and build their house out there, I'm assuming there's nothing out there. I don't remember anything out there, but you know, if they're just building their house, you know, they would have every right to access right off of this driveway as well. So, I mean, that's more of a pro side to the argument for driveway is there's really only one, other than this new lot, there might be total of 3 potentially that could just be built tomorrow that would access. It's not necessarily like you're building a county road where you could have 20 lots that come off of this. That's just not possible out there. So just food for thought.
Any other comments? Is there any public comment on this? Okay, we ready to close public comment then? Okay, Josh and Dave.
So I'm open to making a motion here, but I'm looking at this language, and I know that I'm going to bungle it, so I'm going to reach out to Bailey. How could we do this motion but allow the driveway to remain and not have it turned into a road?
So there's 2 ways you could go. We could, and bear with me here, I've got like 20 screens open, I'm sorry. So, I mean, that could be where we add, so, you know, this was where I was removing the language about not being the bonding thing. We could try to tweak this one a little bit, or I could put up Jenna's recommended language as well if you wanted to take a look at that and see if that is more in favor of kind of your thought. I think, see if did I scare can you see this? Did I share my whole screen or just the PowerPoint? I can't remember. Do you see a PDF? Okay. Yes. Okay. So this is the proposed language that Jenna had proposed here. That also included, you know, the language that we get more specifically out in these rural about the acceptance of a lot, you know, constitutes the assessment for any future waiving of their right to protest, any future RSID or SID for upgrading of the road as well.
So I have a question before we move on into motions here. So Bailey or John Hart, what do you think about this proposed condition of approval language? Any, from a legal standpoint, any problems with that? On the fly, of course.
Dave, I don't have a legal problem with this because nothing that's being proposed here changes the fact that this is a platted public right-of-way. And that's been the way it's been since 1910 or whenever this was platted, and it's the way it will be into the foreseeable future. So from a legal standpoint, I don't have a problem with proposed condition approval number 11. It's really up to the experts at Public Works and emergency services to weigh in on from their end.
So one, I guess, follow-up question, and maybe this is a Shane Stack question. In practical terms, what's the difference between a 16-foot wide driveway versus 16-foot wide road that accords with county road standards? I mean, well, what's the difference if you're looking at it on the ground? I mean, are we looking at pretty much the same thing, or?
Well, obviously, 8 feet and probably some gravel thickness. But going back to your question, your original question, I think there are, quite a few examples that, you probably have driveways in the county roads. So if I guess I would just say I'm not concerned about it, especially this short of a length. And if something needs to be done in the future, I think we can figure that out. I don't want to force unduly the requirements to build a county standard road to this property simply because they're probably going to be the only ones using it.
Well, I guess if I'm understanding this correctly, in either event, we're talking 16-foot wide gravel road in one case.
Mm-hmm.
To
or
whatever
24 foot. Right, versus 24 feet. So you're just another 8 feet, and I think it's just the additional cost is the thickness of the gravel. I have there's probably not a standard out there that they're going to follow as far as thickness of surfacing for their road or their driveway, but there would be that requirement for the thickness of the gravel if they were going to build it per standard.
And I can definitely say, when I talked with Missoula Rural Fire mainly about this, they were definitely concerned with the width for sure versus emergency services, access for their fire truck, that kind of thing. I think that would be the only concern, like the planning side of it is just making sure that it's, providing public health and safety access. And so that's, I guess, I don't know the difference between, what I was talking with Tim, like the 2D version versus the 3D version, right? Like the width is the 2D, the depth is I don't know what that standard is, but that's what we're looking at in subdivision review is just public health and safety and making sure that, if a fire happened, that it's accessible with the fire truck. So.
And a 16-foot driveway, it's accessible.
Yeah. Yep. Pete was, 16 feet is the minimum that they would need. So that's why we were recommending approval of the variance, but with the requirement that it be at least 16 feet width.
And Jenna was good with 16 feet.
And just wants it to be called a driveway instead of a road.
Yeah, well, then she doesn't have to abide by the gravel thickness standards.
That's correct.
And I'm personally moved by the fact that if it changes later and becomes a road, it's on someone else's dollar to do that upgrade, not ours.
Is that, are you crafting a motion?
I don't know. I want to make sure you and Dave are okay too. If Dave's still got some issues, we should.
All right, I am, but Dave, go ahead.
No, that all makes sense. And as long as John Hart's salary is not going to be docked for this decision, we're good.
All right, now we're into language.
Back to the.
Would it be helpful? Do you want to do the 2 variances? I can pull up, let's see. because right now I have here, so it would have to, these are the two variances here. And then that condition number 11, I had done down here as modified by staff, but we could tweak this portion of the main one if you wanted to go with Jenna's language as well. But definitely, I mean, these two motions, motion 1 and 2 for the variances, I think are okay as is.
And then for motion number 3, what's the change we need to make?
I think it would just be subject to recommended conditions of approval in the staff report, and then it would be the modified condition number 11 as presented by the applicant, or something like that, unless John has other thoughts. I'm just off the top of my head, right?
No, I don't have any additional comments, but I just can't let this one go. So Commissioner Strohmeyer suggested that if I'm wrong, I might have to take a pay cut, and he could have said I would have to take a haircut. Right?
I was waiting for that.
Which would be even worse. Okay, I've said enough.
Okay.
Make your motion.
Okay, I'm ready to let her rip, Juan, if you're okay.
Okay, go for it.
All right, I would move the request to vary from section 3.4.7.5.c.1 requiring off-site roads not uniquely attributable to the subdivision to maintain a grade not to exceed 10%, have a minimum 20 feet unobstructed drivable width and 13 feet 6 inches vertical clearance specific to Dundee Road be approved subject to conditions. Number 2, move the request to vary from section 3.4.7.5c.1 requiring off-site roads not uniquely attributable to the subdivision to maintain a grade not to exceed 10%, have a minimum 20 feet attributable to the subdivision. Oh, I said that wrong. 20 feet unobstructed drivable width and 13 feet 6 inches vertical clearance specific to Highland Drive be approved. Number 3, I move the Macintosh Manor number 40 subdivision be approved based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law in the staff report and subject to the recommended conditions of approval in the staff report and the modified condition number 11 as presented by the applicant.
I will second that eloquent set of motions.
Any further comment? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks for the rich discussion.
Yeah, thanks for helping us work through that.
Thank you, commissioners. Appreciate it.
Thank you, commissioners, and thank you, Bailey.
Thank you.
Ericsson Family Transfer. Nick Zemetzis. Nick,
Good
I
afternoon,
know
commissioners.
your last name. How is it properly pronounced?
Zenetis is how, like, lettuce and lettuce is how we always try to tell people to do. But I will respond to anything because I've heard it all. So
Thank you. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
okay, let me get my staff report and notes put up here, then I will get started. So this is the Ericsson Family Transfer. I'm going to start with a brief background on the project. The location of the proposed transfer is off of West Twain Creek Road, which is along the Blackfoot River corridor, approximately 7.5 miles east of Bonner. The parcel in question is 160 acres in size. It is unzoned and currently has no structures on it. The land use guide that designates this area is the 2002 Regional Land Use Guide. It split designates this tract as residential on the western portion, which has a recommendation of 1 dwelling per 10 acres, and open and resource on the rest of the property, which is a recommendation of 1 dwelling per 40 acres. Looking at the family transfer proposal, it would result in a claimant's adult son, James, receiving a 67-acre tract, proposes tract 1, and the claimant's other son, Josh, receiving a 67-acre tract, proposes tract 2. Then the claimant, Tony, would retain ownership of the remaining 26 acres, which proposes tract 3. The application was sent out for agency comment to applicable to applicable agencies around Missoula County, and no comment was received on the project. Now I'll just go over staff analysis and go over any points that were triggered during staff analysis. General Vision Criteria Point 2 was triggered. Tony purchased the property on October 12th, 2021, which is within the 2-year window that the Criteria Point asks for. And then also criteria number 18 was triggered. This area does have a very high wildfire hazard level and is located in the WUI intermix. So there's likely some conditions that would be imposed if this project were to come through as a subdivision. Next, I will go over the family transfer questions with the claimant. Can I have you state your name for the record, please?
Tony Ericsson.
Thank you. First question, did you buy the property with the intent of dividing it?
No.
Question 2, do you or your transferees intend to transfer the property within the next year?
No.
Question 3, have you talked to anyone at the county about going through subdivision review?
I have not.
The last 2 questions, will the property be developed?
It will.
And will the recipient of the property be residing on the property?
Yes.
Thank you. And in conclusion of my presentation, staff is recommending approval of the proposed transfer, and I will turn it back over to you, commissioners.
Thanks, Nick. So, yeah, do we just have, or is it Eli and Associates? Is that who else is here representing?
Correct. Yep, Eli.
Okay. Yeah, so does anyone have any further comments? Eli or Tony?
This is Joshua Phillips with Eli and Associates. I don't have any further comments, but I can take questions, of course.
Okay, are there any public comments? Okay, not hearing any. We'll close the public comments. Commissioners.
Yeah, if I could ask Tony a question. Great.
Go ahead.
All right, so Tony, you bought this land just a few months ago.
Yes.
And so when you bought it, this wasn't in your head about using family transfer to get it to your sons?
No. My husband and I bought it. He has since passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Sorry. I hate to even, it's hard to even ask, but it did not precipitate this decision?
No.
So what changed? Then you bought this a few months ago and now you want to split it up. What happened?
I don't want to live up on the mountain by myself, and I would like to have my sons close to me so that we can be together, if that makes sense.
Sure. But right now you don't live up here, right?
No, I live in Missouri.
Thanks.
Dave?
So, yeah, I do have a question. So I've been back up into this country before, and some of it's pretty dang steep. So are there on all of these parcels enough somewhat level ground to be buildable?
Yes, there are. We've had an architect out, and he has given us approval. Yeah.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay, Josh, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No.
If Nick could bring up the motion again. If we're ready.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. I would move that we approve the request by Tony Ericsson to utilize the family transfer exemption as presented in the exemption application and affidavit.
Second that.
Any further comment? All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Nick again with a Campbell family transfer.
Yep, thank you. Once again, I'm going to start with a brief background. So the location of this proposal is approximately 2 miles north of the Y on the west side of Highway 93 North off of Barron's Court. The parcel is 6.11 acres in size and is currently unzoned and vacant with no structures. The 2019 land use element designates this tract as rural, residential, and agriculture with a recommended density of 1 dwelling per 10 acres to 1 dwelling per 2 acres. Now getting into the applicant's proposal. First, the applicants are proposing to aggregate a remnant boundary line that was flagged by the Clerk and Recorder's Office during HD comment. And then next, the applicants would like to utilize the family transfer exemption. That this would result in the claimant's adult daughter Jaden receiving a 2-acre tract, which is proposed as tract 1. The claimant's minor daughter Alexis receiving a 2-acre tract, proposed as tract 2, and the claimants would retain ownership of the remaining 2.11 acres, proposed as tract 3. And the project would be compliant with the land use designation at 1 dwelling per 2.03 acres. The application was sent out for HD comment. Like I just mentioned, the clerk and recorder's office commented about a remnant boundary line that was on the Campbell's property, and by CAP's recommendation, the Campbells added aggregation to expunge this boundary line. The health department commented that the project must go through sanitation review or cite an applicable exemption. The water quality district did have extensive comments regarding the O'Keefe Creek area in general and the Campbell's project site. The water quality district stated that the area is prone to high groundwater issues, basement flooding, and frequent flooding of roadways and fields. They wanted to note that these issues do not happen annually, but have been noted to happen following high snowpack years, rain on frozen ground events, and larger than normal rain events. In addition, the Campbell property is also located in an area that was once floodplain via a 1977 HUD study. That study did not carry over to the FEMA recognized floodplain, so it does not end floodplain as we know it today with FEMA standards, but it was during HUD standards. And then last, just for the reasons stated above, the Water Quality District is advising slab on grade buildings, advanced consultations with land sanitarians, and careful consideration of integrated stormwater management across all parcels. Next, I'll get into staff analysis and go over any rebuttable presumptions and evasion criteria that were triggered. Rebuttable presumption 2 was triggered as the intended recipient of proposed tract 2 is the claimant's minor daughter. Rebuttable presumption number 4 was also triggered, as is believed that the recipient of tract 2 has no clear intentions to immediately reside on the property given her age. Evasion criteria number 2 was also triggered. The Campbells purchased the property on January 29, 2021, which is within the 2-year window that the exemption asked about. And last, general evasion criteria number 18 was also triggered. Due to concerns raised by the Water Quality District, we would likely impose conditions that would mitigate impacts if this were to come through as a subdivision. So now I will go over the family transfer questions with the claimants. Can I please ask you to state your name for the record? I think you're
muted.
I'm not seeing you're muted, but maybe you're the wrong source for the microphone. If you go to the dots at the top and then hit device settings, you should be able to pick which one is your microphone. Violet, please tell me if I explained that wrong too.
No, that sounds right. It looks like they're unmuted, but can't hear them.
I'm wondering if they could call in on a phone so we'd have the audio from the phone?
Yeah, to the Campbells, I can put the call-in information in the meeting chat so you can see it and call in on a phone and we can hear you that way. Just 1 second. Okay, we actually don't have the chat working. Let me just read you the phone number really quick. It is 406 272 4824. And it'll prompt you for a code here in a second, which I can give to you. The code is 124 728 224 pound.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you, Violet.
Oh, and then,
Great.
there we go.
Some feedback. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Mute.
Does that help?
Oh, gosh,
I think if you turn the sound off on your computer, that way it won't come through both. And I think that should help the echo problem.
Better?
Sorry, just to add to complications, I froze up there for a minute. Are we good to proceed then?
I think so.
Okay.
We are.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So great. Can I please have you state your name for the record?
Bryce Campbell and Marcy Campbell.
Thank you. So question number 1, did you buy the property with the intent of dividing it?
No, we did not.
Question number 2, did you or your transferees intend to transfer the property within the next year?
No, we don't.
Question 3, have you talked to anyone at the county about going through subdivision review?
We have not.
Question 4, will the property be developed?
Yes.
Question 5, will the recipient of the property be residing on the property?
Yes.
Thank you. In conclusion of my part, staff is recommending denial of the proposed request, and I will turn it back over to you, commissioners, and I'm here for any questions.
Okay, so Marcy and Bryce, and then I think is it only Marcy and Bryce who are on here?
They're,
yeah, I think
the rep
Adam Pummel with PCI is on here too.
Okay, sorry, Adam, I didn't. Now I see you. Okay. Do you guys have any comments or want to tell us more about your intentions?
Yeah, so our intentions was just to gift it to our daughters, but I know the question was raised when we spoke on Tuesday. Why now? If we can't do this, we're probably going to build smack dab in the middle and spread out across the whole 6 acres. If we can, then we'll build at the back, being able to let our daughters build there eventually on the other 2. I know it was questioned, the one being underage and one not. My understanding is you can only do this process one time, and then you're done on a piece of property. So we just wanted to get it done. As we all know, because we're all doing this through a computer instead of in a meeting room somewhere, in this day and age, you never know when something's going to happen to you. So if the properties are in their names and anything happened to us, then there's no issue. So that was kind of our thought process. But I know that was raised. There was some issues raised about groundwater and flooding. I guess the only question I have is I wish somebody when we went through sanitation review and everything on this property, there was never an issue. One, we've got approval for all of our septic, well, traditional septic, no issues. But there's other issues that were found. So I guess we're confused on that part too.
And who do we have here from staff who'd be able to speak about groundwater? Nick, is that, or Adam?
Yeah, Adam might be a little bit more specific. I'm not sure if he does any sanitation. I did try to get Elena Evans from the Water Quality District, but she is out of office for the week. We did briefly talk about the issues in general, and they are just issues that are relative to the O'Keefe Creek area in general. The Campbell's property is specific with a comment regarding that they were in the old HUD study floodplain, but in general, they the Health Department and Water Quality District comments they receive various reports of these issues over the years, very dependent upon what's going on in the area, and obviously with the how much snow and rain we get for a certain event. So, sorry, that's a little general.
If you were to build here, the sort of requirements would be no basement, that sort of thing, or Adam, maybe do you have more to explain? Help us out here.
Yeah, I think based on what we've seen out there on the site, I think the Campbells don't intend to build with any basements. The site is generally pretty level with a gradual slope across it. Any concerns over surface flooding could be easily mitigated through good construction practices, elevating the finished floor level of the house, providing for positive drainage away from the house. There doesn't appear to be anything that we've identified that looks like a major concern. In addition to that, we haven't been able to identify any current data anywhere in the recent history that would indicate high groundwater in this area. We have already performed a number of excavations on the site through the sanitation approval process for designing the septic system on the property, and those excavations were performed last year and didn't indicate any presence of groundwater that would affect the septic system as it was designed and eventually permitted.
And so, Adam, when you're saying the property, you mean across all three, all three of these proposed tracks, or were you just focused on where they wanted to build their home in track 3?
I'm referencing the entirety of the parcel across all 3 tracks.
Okay.
Hey, Juanita?
Yeah.
I have a question just to follow up on the Campbell's comment about what is or is not allowable by way of future family transfer. So this would be a question for either, I guess, either John Hart or Nick. And John, if you want to risk the possibility of cutting your hair by the end of this meeting, you can jump in here. But I guess the question is, just to game this out, because I am always a little concerned about family transfers that involve minors. If hypothetically the Campbells were to only carve off one tract to their 19-year-old daughter, is your daughter 19? Is that right? Did I get?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So hypothetically, if the family transfer only included tract 1 to the adult daughter, could at some future date the Campbells have another family transfer with the parent parcel that would include tracts 2 and 3, and essentially at that time sever off what is today tract 2 to the other child?
Dave, the Montana Subdivision and Platting Act doesn't it doesn't prohibit a subsequent transfer in the future. In other words, stated another way, this particular piece of land can, the Campbells can do a family transfer to 1 or more children at this time, and then to the remaining children at a future time. The only limitation is that you can make one family transfer to each child in each county in Montana once only. That's so they couldn't do a family transfer on another piece of land in Missoula County to the same child.
Okay, so that's, I don't know whether that's the assumption that you had, Mr. and Mrs. Campbell, but I think what would be a possibility today, and I don't know if we could do this on the fly, and we still have yet to hear public comment on all of this, would be if we were simply looking at a family transfer to your oldest daughter, you could do a transfer of the 2-acre tract 1 piece of property, and at some future date, if it looks like your other child actually wants to live right next door to you, you could actually do another family transfer of your parent of the parent parcel. So you could build your house on tract 3 today. You would also retain ownership of what you're calling tract 2 here, and do a family transfer to your oldest daughter. Just as an idea, just throwing that out there. I just wanted to clarify what is and what is not possible.
Juan, can I
certainly appreciate that. And oops, I'm sorry.
Oh, so I want to make sure. I think it could be that's a brilliant idea, Dave. It could make it work for these guys. It just attract. Say if the parents were going to live on tract 3, basically tract 3 and tract 2 would be merged at this moment. That would be 1. We'll call that tract 2, and then tract 1 would stay as tract 1. Older daughter gets tract 1. When younger daughter becomes a legal adult, the Campbells go through family transfer again, carve off a piece for her. In the meantime, folks who own this now can build a house where they like, and if their 19-year-old daughter can make it happen, she can build a house on tract 1. Then you just end up waiting a couple of years, and then you carve off a piece for your younger daughter.
And the reason I'm suggesting this is it's absolutely not to make anyone jump through bureaucratic hoops. It's just based on the experience of we have seen problems with transfers to minor kids and or minor children, and this would be a way to thread the needle to at least get your adult child a parcel. You'd still have the option at a future date. Heck, I can't imagine my 15 or 18-year-old son being willing to live right next to me at this point in time. That'd be great if they did, but this would allow you some breathing room.
I guess one point, maybe it's null and void to make. The reason we were doing this, we hadn't thought of this in the beginning. We were very fortunate enough to live next door to Bryce's mom. She battled lung cancer for 8 years. So to be next door to her really showed us as a family, including my kids, because who would have thought your kids would want to live next door to you?
Which sometimes we didn't want to.
How important it is. So I know both of my daughters, Jane will be 20, Alexis will be 17 in August. We're very fond of the idea of, being close and being able to take care of one another like we could with Bryce's mom. So that was kind of this initial thought when we finally got to this point, why we just want to do it and get it done with, so that it is theirs to, take care of us.
Yeah, that's all great logic. If you can follow through on Dave's idea and then wait a little while, you can make that work. The issue we're trying to dodge here is that, and you guys, I'm sure wouldn't do this, but people have used family transfer in the past as a way to carve off a lot and then sell that. And if it's in the name of a minor daughter, they can do with it whatever they like. And really what they should have been doing is going through subdivision. And this is to thwart such a thing. But you could do this now, get it to one daughter, wait a couple years, get it to the other daughter. Everything works.
I see Adam. Oh, I'm sorry, Bryce, were you trying to say something?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, Adam.
I was just gonna kind of interject there and say that, well, this seems like a good compromise too, and maybe the Campbells would be agreeable to what you guys are proposing here. I think they are only trying to follow the current regulations as they're laid out, with the provision for establishing a trust for the benefit of the daughter. And I think they really do have full intent to keep this property for the benefit of their daughters so that they can live close to them. And I think that's evidenced even more by the fact that this track 2 for their minor daughter is in between where they would presume to build or will be building this year and their other daughter. And so I think that shows maybe even less likelihood that they would want to sell a piece in between them and their daughter. That they, to the best of my knowledge, have no intent to do anything like that. And that's why we had originally proposed this as such.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Bryce.
Oh, and I guess and our understanding on the family transfer too was that you could only do one family transfer on a property, which he cleared up. So I mean, as long as we could come back and do another one, then I'd be okay with that.
All right.
I'd assume just get it all done at the same time. But if that's what we have to do, then I'm fine with that. But I didn't think that was within the. I thought once you did a transfer on a piece of property, it was done.
And like Adam said, I don't think we have any intention of having anyone move in between us. That would not be ideal for any of us.
So, I guess for John or Dave or Juan, I'm not sure. Can we do this on the fly? And these guys don't have to come back?
Well, I'm trying to figure out where we ask for public comment. I mean, I see one hand raised on my screen, but I think if the applicant wants to, right now just change his or her application, then makes more sense we take public comment on the amended proposal and application. Maybe that makes the most sense.
Okay, so the amended proposal is to keep track 1 as is going to Jaden, and then keep track 3 and 2 as one track, which we would call track 2. And then when Alexis is of age, then you'd have the opportunity to do a family transfer again for those 2 acres then to her.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the proposal. Can we ask for public comment now on that proposal?
Absolutely.
It looks like, okay. Vicky Rossetti, who I think is a neighbor.
Hi. Yes. I have a statement that I would like to read. Obviously, my name is Vicky Rossetti. I am speaking on behalf of my husband, Don, who is, I believe, just listening in on the phone somewhere. Tom Malum, who lives on lot 73, the lot's directly behind 72, and owns 10 acres. And also his father, who lives in the lot just directly south of our lot, 72C, and owns 40 acres. Neither of whom could be in attendance, but have given me their proxy to speak. So I'm speaking for all 4 of us. In December of 2020, my husband Don and I purchased the lot known as 72C under the COS 2339 with intentions of relocating to the Missoula area for work. The Campbells were looking at the adjoining lots 72A and B. We had expressed at the time that we might be interested in also purchasing lot A to use for growing hay. The Campbells' realtor at first expressed interest and then stated the Campbells' intention to divide and sell the property. Our realtor attempted to contact the Campbells' realtor on numerous occasions and never received any return communication. Several months later, parcel A was listed for sale for $285,000, which is more than we paid for our 11 acres and was unobtainable by us. When Don and I were shopping for land in the Missoula area, we were looking for agricultural land where we could house 3 to 4 horses and possibly grow some hay. The property on Barron's Court was exactly what we were looking for. It is located in an agricultural community with very large lots, most being over 5 acres and with easy access to Highway 93 and I-90. We were very excited to be able to move into such a community. The community we will be leaving is located in Belgrade, in an area that was once an agricultural community. Since moving to our current location in 2006, much of the surrounding property has been sold off and divided up, and we are now surrounded by subdivisions with numerous large houses that have not only blocked our lovely views of the Spanish Peaks and the Tobacco Root mountain ranges, but have created numerous problems with large amounts of traffic on small 2-lane county roads, among other infrastructure issues. From the time the Campbells purchased the lots A and B, it appears their intention was to divide and sell off the lots. We obtained information early last year regarding the Campbells' intention to divide the 2 lots into 5 total lots and sell them. Information was later obtained that the cost to put in improvements was too great, so the Campbells opted to sell Lot A and gift portions of Lot B with the intention of selling in the future. Living next to a minor subdivision was not our intention when we moved to the area. We do not want to end up in a similar situation we are in now. We would like to see the area stay as an agricultural area where the residents can enjoy the open space. We believe the Campbells are gifting a portion of their remaining tract to their children in an effort to bypass review by the DNRC and to evade the subdivision rules. All 3 of the COS 2339 lots and the lots to the west are only accessed by Barron's Court, which is nothing more than a single-track dirt road that will not handle the excess traffic that 5 additional lots will bring without major improvements that would have been required during the subdivision approval process. It is our hope the commissioners will deny the family transfer and allow the property to maintain the existing agricultural feel of the area. I also would like to comment that Tom Malum has told us that those lots, in fact, do flood quite frequently. He lives in that lot directly behind lots 72, and that's one of the very first things he told us when we went over and were scouting for possible well locations and a possible building site for our home. He also did state that there is a major water issue out there, and they have already had to build a second well. Our concern is the land does have water rights that goes with all 3 of those lots, and if we decided we wanted to use those water rights to possibly grow some hay at the bottom portion of our 11 acres, what kind of water are we going to have with 5 more wells and septic systems out there? Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Vicki. Is there any more public comment? I don't see any more public comment. We'll close public hearing. Oops.
Can we respond to that?
Yes, but yes, go ahead.
Well, it is in response to us splitting and selling. I don't know where she got us splitting it into 5 lots and selling it off, but when we bought that property, it was already divided. We bought 2 lots when we bought it, and they were interested in maybe buying ours. They were told that we were going to sell the front lot. So that was the division, the dividing and selling. It was already 2 lots when we purchased the property. So we sold the front lot and kept the back 6 acres. But I just wanted to clarify that. I don't know where she got her information that we had all these grand plans that we didn't even know about, but that was the dividing the lot. It was already divided before we ever even saw it on the market.
Okay, thank you. And then I see a hand raised, but I don't know who this is. Violet?
See, Nick's got his hand up.
Okay.
I was just going to clarify,
Maybe
I
that
think.
Sorry.
No, I think there is an additional one. I think the confusion might come from the Campbell's original application did involve both lots and was a combination boundary line relocation family transfer exemption. Then they since amended it to only involve the rear lot that you see today.
Oh, thanks for clearing
And that was midsummer, I believe, of last year.
Okay, thank you for that. I see it's called attendee guest, and I don't know who that is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead and state your name for the record.
My name is Julie Evans, and we are property owners to the north of the property that's looking at getting the family transfer exemption. And although we are not opposed to the division of the lots, we were always told that the lots out here were one house per 2.5 acres. And given the additional information of the flooding of the property, which is true, I mean, we've lived out here for over 10 years, and that property does flood from water coming across by the culverts from Interstate 93. And with that, earlier you guys stated that houses would have to be slab on grade, no basement. I guess that's a concern to me as far as how far back setbacks would be for this property. You know, we moved out here so that we didn't have somebody living right next to us or having a multi-story house looking down into our backyard. So when you're looking at having a slab on grade, you're obviously looking at a 2-story home. And I know what the setbacks are for our area. And it was always my assumption that this property was part of the Meadows West Subdivision Homeowners Association, where there are specific setbacks. And so I'm not sure if anybody on this call today can tell me what the setbacks are for this property in question, or if maybe the current owners know any of that.
I can answer that.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
So it's currently unzoned, so there is no setbacks. It is proposed to be zoned with a 2-lot minimum acre size in the proposed draft that the zoning audit has put forth. I have seen the proposed covenants as well. The only thing I saw in there, and I should add that there was no clause that I saw regarding governing body authority to enforce. So I think this would be a private covenant that would have to be enforced within the covenant itself. But I did see a 1 acre minimum size in there, but I did not see a 2.5 acre size.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Adam, did you have anything to add to that?
I don't. I think as it's shown here, they're proposing one house on 2 acres, which is consistent with the neighborhood and the proposed zoning that the county has proposed out there.
Thank you. Is there any more public comment? See, Vicky?
I would like to say that they're proposing that they change the dividing and have 2 acre lots, but that has not been implemented, so it's not fair to look at the future. And them placing 2 acre lots next to bigger lots does not go with the character of the neighborhood. Most of the lots surrounding them are larger lots. Ours is 11 acres. The Malums have 40 and 10 respectively. The ones on the backside, I think the smaller one is 2.5, but there's like one of those. Most of those lots in that neighborhood are bigger. And I'm not looking forward to having 5 houses right directly across a tiny 1-track road with no privacy.
Thanks, Vicky. Is there, duly noted. Any further public comment? Okay, we'll close public hearing. Josh and Dave, what discussion?
Just got one comment. This is kind of almost in the abstract, but all this discussion we're hearing right now is further proof of the need for the process of subdivision. That all these things get discussed and worked through and made right in the subdivision process. And what we're talking about now is family transfer doesn't do any of that. And I'm not saying that I would vote against it or vote for it. It's just demonstrative of the need for subdivision when we chop up pieces of land and there's neighbors and roads and all these other things involved.
Well, and if I might add, I think it's also demonstrative of the importance of zoning, because that density and lot size and whatnot, to a large extent, would get resolved in that process, which we will be resolving soon enough for a good chunk of the greater Missoula area.
Yeah.
But currently it is unzoned, and then the Campbells would be assuming all the risk of trying to build in this area. And you're comfortable, we're recognizing that. Further comments? Sorry, Josh, you were...
No, I'm just listening. Thank you, though.
Do either of you have a motion? Or how do you feel?
Yeah, I guess I would be fine making, well, unless you wanted to, Josh. Nick, could you flash up what the original motion is? And I guess what we are proposing or contemplating is an amended version of that.
I did take a small stab at changing it slightly. Not sure if it'd be adequate, but just changing to approve and adding amended in front, if that is the way you want to go, commissioners.
And then how, okay, and then how do we, because the proposal that we're talking about is, yes, 2, not 3. So how do we, where is that written?
So I do believe we've done this once before, at least with one of my projects. I want to say it was the Brock family transfer. And what we did was during the approval letter, we specified it was a denial to one recipient and approval for another recipient. I would definitely defer to John Hart on if he would be okay with that process being the same, if that is the way that you choose to go.
John?
Well, I haven't really thought this through, but having heard the applicants, on the record, amend their application, I don't necessarily know that the letter stating the commission's decision has to say, talk about any part of the denial. I think it could just say, I could just think the letter could memorialize that amended application that was made here at the meeting today and indicate that was approved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, with that, I guess I would make the motion. I move that we approve the request by Bryce and Marcy Campbell to utilize the aggregation and family transfer exemption as presented in the amended exemption application and affidavit.
I'll second that.
Any further comment? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. Do folks want to take 3-minute break before we talk about overwater conveyance?
Yes.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Can I ask you guys a question? Is anybody still here? Hello?
Sorry, I think the commissioners are going to take a quick 3-minute break and then resume the meeting with the last item on the agenda.
So can somebody help me and ask me like what recourse we have when these people do turn around and just sell these lots?
This is Deputy County Attorney John Hart, and
Hi, John.
how are you?
I'm not very happy.
Well, I can't help you in that regard, Ms. Rossetti, but I can tell you that there is Missoula County in its subdivision regulations requires the Campbells to hold the property that they're going to gift to their daughter. That has to be held for at least 2 years. So, they won't be able to immediately turn around and do something with that property, or their daughter won't be able to immediately turn around and do something with that property. But I'm not going to say that 2 years isn't very long.
No, it's not when we plan on living there longer than 2 years.
Well, that's the only backstop that we have in our regulations on it, which is more than the legislature has put in the statute. The Subdivision and Platting Act doesn't require any holding period. That's just something that we being Missoula County has put in our subdivision regulations to try to hold people, so to speak, to the commitments that they've made at these hearings and as part of their affidavit and application process.
And so what about that little tiny road? Like they want to add all these lots and all this other stuff and.
Yeah, that's something between the the other people who have access to that road. That's a private matter. So we don't. This came up at an earlier agenda item where we made it clear that the county doesn't approve these for legal or physical access. We make people state that on the certificate of survey that they have to record creating the family transfer lot, so that the public is also on notice that this particular division of land wasn't reviewed for legal and physical access.
So basically, like, this is done. There's nothing we can do. I mean, we're going to end up living right across this tiny tract road from 5 houses because the guy he sold it to is going to divide that other lower lot.
Well, the division has been approved.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, it's 3:53. Who do we have presenting? Shane. Thank you. Oops, I'm not sure if Josh is here.
Okay.
I hear him walking by, so sorry.
We could. Did you guys want to do another family transfer?
Why not?
Yeah, is little Shane ready?
Yeah, do you have something you want to transfer, Shane?
Baby Shane wants to.
It's funny you say that. He was sitting here with me like 10 minutes ago. So I'd love if he could just hang out and be in a meeting with me, but I don't think he has the patience.
Okay, well, we'll wait a couple more minutes for Josh to get back. I heard him walk by. Okay, Shane, take it away.
All right. Well, the agenda item before you today is to discuss Mcclay Bridge and request that the Commission provide a recommendation regarding the future of the existing Mcclay Bridge. Part of the scope of the proposed South Avenue Bridge project includes the removal of the existing Mcclay Bridge, and the project team is requesting that the current Board of County Commissioners provide a recommendation for the existing Mcclay Bridge in the event a new South Avenue Bridge is constructed. So really, the topic today is focused more on the Mcclay Bridge and not if or should there be or should there not be a South Avenue Bridge. So I just want to, I guess, point that out. It's not a discussion about South Avenue Bridge. It's really focused on Mcclay. Public Works and HDR developed a brief presentation that kind of shares several options that we've considered for Mcclay Bridge in the event a South Avenue Bridge is constructed. So Dustin Hirose, you can see him on the screen, and John Schick with HDR are going to do a quick presentation, and I guess we're done with the presentation. We'll, I guess, turn it over to you. So go ahead, Dustin.
Okay, am I able to share my screen here? It looks like I don't have position or permission. Okay.
I think I just gave you permissions, Dustin. Do you see it now?
I do. So let's see here.
We're looking at it, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Turn this off. Okay, can you see the presentation okay?
Yes.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for having us here today. As Shane said, this is just a brief presentation to kind of talk through some of the different options that we considered as part of the Mcclay, or for the Mcclay Bridge as part of the South Avenue Bridge project. And essentially, there's two options, really. One is to leave the Mcclay Bridge in place, possibly rehabilitate it. And of course, the other option is just to remove it altogether. And in considering these different options, of course, we looked at the potential impacts from an environmental standpoint, from a river hydraulics standpoint, and potential cost implications as well. And as Shane mentioned, all of these options are predicated upon the fact that a new bridge will still move forward at South Avenue. So there's two scenarios. As I just mentioned, one is you have a new South Avenue Bridge with the existing Mcclay Bridge removed, or there's a new South Avenue Bridge with the Mcclay Bridge in place. And so, our goal is to, with this study that we performed, was to help inform the county in making a recommendation on whether or not to remove Mcclay. And ultimately, that decision would be used to help document the environmental process moving forward. So just a little, this is a project area map. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the project and where it's located, but just in case, down here on the bottom part of the screen, this is South Avenue. And this kind of shaded in line work here, this is all new line work, and this represents the proposed project. So this is where the proposed South Avenue Bridge would be located. And then, of course, the Mcclay Bridge is located here to the north, downstream, actually. The river flows to the north in this particular situation. And here's the Mcclay Bridge located on North Avenue and currently connecting to River Pines Road. So just a brief history, or I guess rather it's a brief recap of the project history of the project here. One of the key milestones was back in 2002. This is when the project was nominated to receive funding from MDT as part of the off-system bridge program. And then between 2010 and about 2013, that's when the Mcclay Bridge planning study was completed or performed. And this was a pre-NEPA study to vet various project options and kind of set the stage for the environmental document. In 2013, that study was completed. And at that same time, the commission voted to pursue the funding from MDT and replace the Mcclay Bridge. And then in 2015, the commitment to replace Mcclay Bridge was reaffirmed by the commission, and that's when HDR was selected to move forward with the final environmental documentation and the design of the project. And so between that time and now, we've been performing preliminary design activities and working to prepare the environmental documentation. And for the most part, the preliminary design has been paused just to wait while the environmental document has been going or under review. So, quick overview of the different options we considered for Mcclay. And I guess maybe it's important to maybe talk about the Mcclay Bridge just real briefly. So it has some important characteristics that, really need to be considered if we keep the structure. As you know, the Mcclay Bridge has been around for a while. But currently it isn't set high enough to pass the design flood event. So that essentially means that the superstructure is impacted during the 100-year flows. The bridge is vulnerable to scour. The piers are misaligned with the direction of river flow. There's really limited information on the existing foundation construction. So it's hard to determine just how resilient that structure will be to scour. There's currently a scour hole located at one of the intermediate piers. The bridge is load restricted. I believe it's posted at 11 tons right now. And obviously the structure is aging and really beyond the expected useful service life, and currently subject to corrosion and other types of deterioration. So there's several options we can consider. One is to, of course, remove the Mcclay Bridge altogether. The second option is to do nothing, basically just leave the Mcclay Bridge in place as it is right now. The third option is to raise the structure, so we would lift the superstructure up so that it will pass the 100-year flood event, and then possibly rehabilitate it, perform some structural repairs, and upgrade it for use by pedestrians and bicycles. And then the fourth option is really the same as the third option, except it's kind of a multi-stage rehab that would, limit the upfront cost to rehabilitate the structure, and just basically spread that out over multiple years of construction. So the initial financial burden isn't as high. So what we did is we prepared a matrix, and these are just snapshots from the matrix that we prepared, and we'll make sure this is available so folks can review it in detail. And I'll just walk through some of the advantages and disadvantages. And I'm not going to talk through every one of these bullet points here, but because folks can obviously read that. But I will highlight some of the key points here. So the first option is to remove the Mcclay Bridge. And some of the advantages of that, first of all, it's the low-cost long-term solution. So this is the least financial burden to the county is if the Mcclay Bridge is removed altogether. A second key point of that is that it best mitigates flood risk. And then maybe another key thing to point out here too is that, per our communication with the resource agencies, removal of the Mcclay Bridge and the river restoration mitigates in part the environmental impacts of the South Avenue Bridge located upstream. Of course, the disadvantage of removing the Mcclay Bridge is that requires some documentation on the impacts of this historic resource, as the Mcclay Bridge is classified as a historic resource. And then some floodplain and river hydraulic considerations that need to be considered as well is that if we remove the bridge, this best improves hydraulic opening, And you can actually expect the 100-year flood elevation upstream of the Mcclay Bridge to drop by more than 1 foot if that structure is removed. So this best mitigates flood risk if we get rid of it. Additionally, we eliminate the issue with pier scour or increased scour associated or flooding associated with debris and ice collecting on the piers. So long-term financial impact is none. The initial cost, we're estimating at about $350,000 to have the bridge removed. So of course, the next option is to do nothing. So this would leave the Mcclay Bridge as is. The bridge could possibly be barricaded to traffic, allow pedestrian access over the structure. And of course, the main advantage of this option is that it preserves the historic resource. Some of the disadvantages is that, there's some significant ongoing maintenance cost, potential liabilities for the owner or the county if the county continues to own the structure. I think too, another thing to point out is that, right now traffic goes over the bridge, right? So if you close it to traffic, it's possible that you might see some elevated unwanted use, if it's not as easy to get out there and patrol it, in particular people climbing and jumping from the structure. Of course, you're not resolving the risk of scour, washout, or any flood risk. I think another key thing to point out is if the structure remains there, is that during the 10-year event, nearly twice the volume of water will overtop River Pines Road, compared to that flood of elevation decreasing by a foot if that bridge was removed. I think another thing that we discovered recently too is that the rise, so the base flood elevation due to both bridges being in place, would exceed state and county floodplain regulations. So keeping this Mcclay Bridge in place as it stands right now files the state and county floodplain regulations. Obviously, there's minimal cost associated, upfront cost associated with this alternative, but the long-term financial impact would likely be high just due to the ongoing maintenance with the structure. So option 3, this is to raise and rehabilitate the structure for pedestrian use. And the reason we would raise it is to get the superstructure, that's the part of the structure that cars are traveling on now, is to get that above the 100-year flood elevation so that it can adequately convey that flow. So the benefit of that obviously is that it keeps the historic resource potentially, assuming we don't have to modify the bridge significantly, and it maintains that historic value. And it helps reduce the risk of washout compared to, doing nothing and just leaving there as it is. Some of the disadvantages, of course, is that this has a very high initial cost, $3.6 million is what we're estimating as a construction cost. And it will continue to require, annual maintenance and inspection costs throughout the life of the bridge. I think another thing to point out too is that even though the structure is retrofitted, the piers would still be misaligned with the direction of flow. They're still susceptible to scour and collecting debris, which is another maintenance issue. And really, under this alternative, we actually looked at replacing one of the intermediate piers as the only viable alternative to fully eliminate risk to that pier that is exhibiting a scour hole right now. But really, the other piers would go unmitigated. So the cost to mitigate scour at those piers would be likely substantial, potentially cost prohibitive. And so right now, this cost estimate only considers mitigating scour risk at one of the piers. Another point to consider with this option is that despite raising the structure up, I think we would raise it about 2 feet in order to convey high flows, it really has negligible improvement on river hydraulics. And that's because really the obstruction is created by that bridge substructure. So raising the bridge, it eliminates some risk of high water impacting the superstructure, but you're not seeing a significant improvement in the river hydraulics. And so the final option, which is option 4, this is very similar to the option I just described. We would rehabilitate the structure. We would raise the structure to convey the high flows. It would just happen in 2 phases. So I can't actually see the cost estimate there, but basically it reduces that initial upfront cost to just over $2 million. And then the second stage, which would be the full conversion to a pedestrian bike ped structure, you'd basically divide the cost in 2. You'd be paying $2 million for each stage. So that's just a quick recap of our evaluation of the Mcclay Bridge. And I guess, Shane, maybe I'll turn it back to you to cover this last slide.
Yeah, thanks, Dustin. I appreciate the information. From Public Works perspective, we're recommending that we remove the Mcclay Bridge in association with the proposed South Avenue Bridge project in the event the South Avenue Bridge project moves forward to construction. So with that, I don't know if you guys have questions, comments you want to ask.
Thanks so much, Dustin. Should we open it up for public comment right now?
Yeah.
At this late hour, 4:12?
I saw Bob Gentry's hand go up.
Oh, great. Bob Gentry. It looks like he's unmuted. Nope, he's still muted.
Let's give him a sec to figure it out.
Bob, you're still muted if you can hear us. Okay, I think we'll come back to you. Jean Curtis.
Thank you, Commissioners. I did send you a written comment today too. So I'll go over it quickly because I know what it's like to be there for a long meeting. I've read the matrix prepared for you by HDR Engineering that summarizes several options. The options are either for leaving the bridge, as he talked about, retrofitting or removing it as part of the project. The safety, functionality, and alignment of the Mcclay Bridge has been a concern to the citizens and to the county for decades. There have been many studies costing millions of dollars that have been done over the years. The existing bridge was relocated from Greeno when the original bridge washed out, even though it did not reach all the way across the river. As you know, looking at an aerial map of the area, it is clear that this is a narrow portion of the Bitterroot River, which is likely why the Mcclay family built the original bridge in this location to access their land. However, the dynamics of the river and the resulting strange alignment would never be chosen to locate a bridge today. Today, your discussion and action are focused on the future of the existing bridge based on the extensive information presented by HDR Engineering. Each alternative has advantages and disadvantages, assesses the river hydraulics and the floodplain implications, the long-term impacts, and the costs. The costs to remove Mcclay Bridge and restore the river's banks are minimal and can be included in the project costs funded by the federal off-system bridge program. The costs of the other options will be borne by Missoula County taxpayers. Missoula County road and or bridge funds are not available for pedestrian, equestrian, or bicycle trails. Therefore, the commissioners will have to levy additional funds and plan for the potential of future maintenance and liability costs. And I would remind you that in not too many years ago, we had a lawsuit because someone jumped off the Deer Creek Bridge and landed on a floater And that was the person was hurt really bad, and the county was was sued and had to pay quite a bit of money. So liabilities are important, as well as things like rushing out the bridge. The matrix with the summary of options addressing the river hydraulics, floodplain, and costs provide you with a clear choice. The Mcclay Bridge needs to be removed and the river banks restored as part of the South Avenue Bridge project. This will allow the river to flow naturally by removing those bridge piers, eliminating issues with pier scour and flooding from debris collecting on the piers. The matrix notes also have some suggestions for floodplain mitigation along a longer stretch of the Bitter River that can be addressed separate from the bridge project. The new South Avenue Bridge will also have a pedestrian and bike lane. Elected officials have tough decisions to make. You've been provided with the information you need to make this decision today. Please take the recommendation of the engineers and your Public Works Director and adopt alternative 1. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean. Bob Gentry, we'll try you again. Are you able to unmute? Yes, you are. Fantastic.
All right. So thank you for this opportunity to comment. As you know, I'm Bob Gentry, attorney for Mcclay Bridge Alliance. I submitted some written comments to you. Rather than reading them into the record, I'll summarize if that's okay with you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, expressing a preference for the fate of Mcclay Bridge today is premature. It does, in fact, actually presuppose an outcome that a new bridge will be built at the western terminus of South Avenue. As such, it constitutes a predetermined outcome of the NEPA process. Looking at alternatives and evaluating impacts of those is one of the primary purposes of NEPA and MEPA. It's the common sense look before you leap component. You can't consider this request as a hypothetical. You can't consider it as a in the event of. There are no hypothetical decisions under NEPA and MEPA, but there are predetermined outcomes in violation of NEPA and MEPA, which is what this would be if you make this decision today. So in connection with that, a CAT-X from environmental review is inapplicable here. There are identified impacts to this project, and regulations in MEPA jurisprudence expressly rule out excluding this project from full evaluation. The CAT-X in the exclusion of formal public comment violates both NEPA and MEPA and constitutional right of citizens to participate in government decision making. Now, prior input, including today's input by me and members of MBA, does not constitute public participation under NEPA or MEPA. When an agency is not required to publicly solicit comment, formally respond to those comments, and make those part of a NEPA or MEPA record of decision, any comments received through the course of project development don't constitute NEPA or MEPA public comments. And the circular justification of choosing a CAT-X for this project is insufficient. Just stating that there are no significant impacts, therefore we don't have to determine whether there are significant impacts, is the very definition of arbitrary and capricious. And the fact that this bridge may replace services of an existing bridge falls far outside of the categorical exclusion for bridge replacement. When a new bridge is on a completely different alignment involving disturbance of floodplain, wetlands, riparian habitat, stream bed, and importantly, the taking of private property through eminent domain, NEPA and MEPA regs and jurisprudence clearly state that the project is ineligible for CAT-X. I encourage you all to look at MDT's own environmental manual, in which it considers unusual circumstances to elevate a CAT-X to an EA or EIS. And this section specifically references Federal Highways Administration regulations located at 223 CFR. Look at that. And several of the factors listed there apply specifically to this project. Now, a standalone basis for excluding CAT-X from jurisprudence of these sections is any taking of private property for eminent domain. CADX doesn't apply. And as just stated, removal of Mcclay Bridge would mitigate environmental impacts of building South Avenue Bridge upstream. Well, impacts that will require mitigation, I know he's talking about that it may change the hydraulic flow upstream such that there won't be as many problems. But that assumes that there are going to be hydrogeomorphological issues associated with construction of a new bridge upstream. That requires examination under an environmental impact statement. And next, real quickly, the payback provision of the 2015 project-specific agreement can't play a role in your decision-making in this matter. It can't be a coercive factor, auguring for any determination. It's my opinion, and I can provide you with a legal memo, that the provision is contractually unenforceable. The record in this clearly demonstrates that there's no meeting of the minds. 2017 meeting, it depends, is no answer. I mean, this is no meeting of the minds, and it's void for vagueness from the outset. Final point, project is much bigger than what has to date been considered by the agencies. The safety of the traveling public, pedestrian and bicyclists, and the impacts on private property rights and interests extend to the east and west of the bridge due to the construction of a new high-speed traffic-inducing structure. If one were to slice a project into small enough portions, any impact would, of course, be insignificant. Without considering the whole of the project, without segmenting it, then you don't get a look at the real impacts of the project. And segmentation is a clear violation of NEPA and MEPA, and it would inevitably occur here if you only consider construction of the bridge. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Okay, Michael, and this is a good reminder, it's 4:22, and so let's try to keep our comments to 3 minutes.
All right, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, well, I intended to comment initially on something else, but after hearing Mr. Gentry, I would just like to respond to a couple of his points. First of all, on MEPA and NEPA, I think as explained to you all, the commissioners in your previous meetings with the MDT and the Federal Highway Administration, they are the ones responsible for complying with the NEPA and MEPA, not you, not the county. The county decisions are not subject to MEPA and NEPA, as evidenced, for example, by your development at Fort Missoula. There was no MEPA and NEPA done on that because it was a county decision. The main categorical exclusion authority that's being done now is for the Federal Highway Administration because they are subject to it. So what you're being asked to do today is not make a so-called MEPA-NEPA decision. You're being asked to make essentially, I guess, a recommendation, a statement to Federal Highway Administration who will actually make the decision that could be subject to litigation or whatever. So I wanted to clarify that. The other point that I'll quickly make is that some of the options that Dustin went over that involve retaining the bridge, for example, 3 and 4, I think one of them mentioned putting in a parking place, a parking lot, and doing some other things. I would just point out to you that there are some additional financial ramifications of that. You're essentially then turning that into a developed recreation site, which comes with it litter and garbage and sewage and lots of other implications. And, you know, that's hardly needed, although river access should be provided and will be regardless. But with Kelly Island nearby and also Mcclay Flats, I think it would be redundant in that regard to look at putting any sort of a recreational facility there. I mean, there really isn't the space for it. And as some of the things that Dustin pointed out, it would be an environmental and a public safety liability. That's it. I'll let you go home.
Not quite yet, but thank you. Sharon Sturbis?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a member of Missoula, Mcclay Bridge Alliance, just to point that out, and I live on South Avenue near where the new bridge site's going to be. What I would like to point out that hasn't been presented in the HDR's presentation is that Mcclay Bridge was looked at as being a pedestrian facility because MDT is unwilling to pay for the shared use path on the new South Avenue Bridge, which is part of the environmental documents they've been working on for years. And so now there's a new wrinkle. They don't want the shared use, they don't want to pay for it because they say that there's no bicycle pedestrian facilities on either side of the bridge, so that there's not needed. But that's the whole point of why the project is flawed to begin with. There is no safe way to travel on South Avenue past Humble if a new bridge is put in with no pedestrian bicycle facilities. So basically, we kind of have to, you can't decide about Mcclay at this point until you know what is going to happen to make sure that there's a safe route to get to the river and to get across the river. Right now, the only safe way to get at least to the river is taking the trail, the shared use path along south that turns on Humble and then turns on north. So you should not be making this decision right now. MDT is pushing you, Federal Highway is pushing you, but they're not giving you enough information to make this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Don St. Peter?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
All right. So I think thanks to Mr. Gentry, we've just seen a preview of the lawsuit that Mcclay Bridge Alliance fully intends to file at some point in the future as part of their ongoing attempts to delay the South Avenue Bridge. Their attempts to delay the South Avenue Bridge project started in the 1990s and they continue through today. And so Mcclay Bridge Alliance has been relatively successful in delaying the South Avenue Bridge project for a good 20 years. You do not have to be sucked into their program of delay. As Mike indicated, you're not subject to NEPA and MEPA. That's not what you're being asked to do today. You're being asked to give advice to the ultimate decision maker who can then deal with the Mcclay Bridge Alliance lawsuit. And I would encourage you to, as you've demonstrated in the hearings prior to this one today, have faith in your staff, have faith in the engineers and attorneys at the Department of Transportation, and follow their recommendations. The thing that I disagree with very much about what Bob Gentry said is that you should be taking into consideration the tax impact of your decision and the ultimate removal or decision to leave in place in Mcclay Bridge. You should be taking into consideration the impact of that decision on the taxpayers of Missoula County. That's what you as commissioners are responsible for doing, and there's nothing wrong with you doing that. The clear impact of the decision should lead you in the direction of removing Mcclay Bridge. With regard to the comments that Sharon Sturbis made, let's keep in mind, folks, there is no bike pedestrian crossing on Mcclay Bridge. So we're not going backwards. If we go to a new bridge that's 2 lanes, it's much wider. And so the premise that Sharon put to you is just a false premise. This is not, the pedestrian bike path is not a critical factor in this decision because there is not one of those today. Mcclay Bridge does not, believe me, I crossed Mcclay Bridge both on foot and on bike many times, and it is not pedestrian or bike friendly in the least. And so I would encourage you to follow your staff, have faith in your staff, have faith in the Department of Transportation and the engineers and attorneys there, follow the recommendation and vote to remove Mcclay Bridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Dana Hedical.
Hi, thank you very much for taking comments. I know that it's really late, so I will be very brief. My concern during this whole project has been that there has been such segmentation and not looking at the whole environmental and safety issue. So I'm very concerned about that. The second is, I think Missoula County Commissioners do have a significant responsibility for the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists in this area. You know, there is no safe way with increased traffic from the South Avenue Bridge. There is no safe way for the children from the trailer park at the end of South Avenue on the east side of the river to get up to Humble. And it's right now, there are very few cars, but with a bridge, there will be significant faster traffic. So again, my concerns are, one, the segmentation of this project, which has occurred since the beginning, and secondly, the safety aspect, which everybody seems to be passing off. So thank you again very much for allowing for public participation.
Thank you, Dana. I don't see any hands raised. Oh, Fred Stewart. Fred, you're muted. There you go.
Thank you. Fred Stewart with Mcclay Bridge Alliance, and I just wanted to very quickly go over a few points for the commissioners to consider. The first one is that our engineers have shown that the bridge can be rehabbed to 36 tons, and that's adequate for all fire and safety equipment and loaded school buses. The cost estimate of the rehab plan that we submitted was less than $4 million, and I realize that was in 2016 and prices have gone up, but that particular design would also include a separated bike ped lane. The approaches for the historic bridge can have a design exception, so no structures would have to be removed on the west side of the river. And here's kind of a key point. The estimates for traffic for the year 2045, based upon the update from Missoula MPO, was 1,429 average annual daily traffic count. In the year 2017, the actual number was 1,946. Excuse me. So, based upon these future demand estimates, there isn't really a need for a new high-capacity bridge. There just isn't. And as people have mentioned, the rehab bridge can be raised above the 100-year flood plain. It's possible to preserve our historic bridge by rehabbing it, and a rehab bridge would be eligible for categorical exclusion under NEPA analysis because you'd just be rehabbing the existing bridge. Thank you, and you're in a tough position, but I got confidence in you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Again, I don't see any hands. Any more comment? Violet, do you see anything from your end? Anyone
No,
on
there's a couple phone callers. I would just remind them if they do want to give comment, they just have to hit *6 on their keypads and let us know, but there's only a couple of them, so I'm not sure if they want to give comment or not.
phone numbers ended in 4132 or 6322? *6. Okay, we're gonna close public comment and discuss amongst the commission. Okay. Josh and Dave. And I can't see Josh. Dave, can you see Josh?
Here I am. Can you see me now?
Oh, now we can. Yep.
I can't see Dave, but
Really? Okay.
yeah.
I'm
Can you
under
see
the
Shane?
bridge.
You're under the bridge.
Okay, so again, the question for us today, and I know it is incredibly frustrating. People have expressed frustration over the segmented kind of process here, but the question before us today is, if South Avenue Bridge is built, what do we do with Mcclay?
Yeah, let me just go ahead and break the ice here a little bit. So I think that's exactly right, Juanita. So the question before us today is not what is the correct level of environmental analysis. We've had discussion about this in the past, and I completely empathize with concerns that CE, a categorical exclusion, may not be the ideal level of environmental documentation and analysis, but that's not what's before us. Similarly, it's not a question before us today of whether or not to build the South Avenue Bridge, or even whether or not Mcclay Bridge could be rehabilitated and restored in a way for vehicular access without a South Avenue Bridge being constructed. We've heard in recent meetings from Fish, Wildlife and Parks, our floodplain administrator, Clark Fork Coalition on this matter as far as hydrologic impacts. And I think, unless Josh and Juanita, you have different thoughts on this, the consensus was pretty clear that if one new bridge is to go in, namely the South Avenue Bridge, for the sake of mitigating hydrologic impacts, Mcclay Bridge should be removed. And I should also say that to the concern about whether a new South Avenue facility would include non-motorized bike pad facilities, I think we've made pretty clear in no uncertain terms to the Montana Department of Transportation that it would be an unacceptable outcome to have a new bridge built in the 21st century without non-motorized facilities as part of it. And certainly, as my role on the Metropolitan Planning Organization's Transportation Policy Coordinating Committee as the chair, I will do everything in my power should there be, if there is a new South Avenue Bridge, that it contain those non-motorized pedestrian facilities. And the last thing I would say is that the removal, if there is a removal of the Mcclay Bridge, that does not mean that public access will be eliminated from this site. I think that's pretty important to bear in mind.
Thanks. Juan, can I toss something out? Dave, you did that so completely and thoroughly. I agree with everything you said. I'm just going to reiterate, and it's tough because this issue is so contentious and people have so much on the line that there are folks who live right next to the Mcclay Bridge and people who live right next to the South Avenue Bridge, and their lives are going to be profoundly affected by what happens to this. And yet the question before us isn't which bridge should go or stay or go. It's if the South Avenue Bridge goes, what should be done with the Mcclay Bridge? And then considering along that matrix all those criteria, liability, cost, what's going to happen to the river, flooding, et cetera. And just looking at that matrix, it seemed obvious to me that if the South Avenue Bridge is built, the best thing for the river is to have the Mcclay Bridge go. That is not a question about NEPA and MEPA or greater responsibility. I'll just leave it at that. And deep empathy to everyone involved.
Shane?
The only thing I would say, Juan, is from my perspective, this is one of the unfortunate parts of my job. And just building infrastructure in general is, you always run into the situation where roads change, and the folks that live on those roads, they're not always happy with those outcomes and or the plans. And it's one of those things that is probably the worst thing in what we have to do. I wish there were easier answers, and these are challenging projects, but at the end of the day, we have to look at a county as a whole, and it's hard because sometimes the individuals are not taken care of as well as they may be, but and just because of the simple fact that we have to look at these things more on a global perspective and not on that individual perspective. So,
Juanita, I have a question for Shane. So, Shane, could you operationalize this a little bit for me? So,
sure.
What we're basically talking about is whether the Section 106 process. So, and I don't know if anyone from HDR on the line, maybe they would want to speak to this also, but what's brought this to the surface is clearly if the bridge remains either in any of the options that are portrayed there, either no action alternative, if you will, or with major rehabilitation, then you don't need to go through, my understanding is you would not need to go through the balance of the Section 106 process by way of figuring out mitigations for the adverse impacts on this historic structure. If the bridge is removed, then that needs to continue to move forward as far as whatever public process or otherwise to look at mitigations to the adverse impact. Is that roughly correct, or do you want to clarify any of that?
Well, I think you're right, and I, certainly let John Schick jump on too if he's still on here to add to that. But and I think there's another component too, Dave, that we want to discuss is that the American Council on Historical Preservation, we would still have to do a presentation with them if we decide that the removal of the bridge would happen in the event of a new South Avenue bridge. And then they would give some feedback and guidance to Federal Highway Administration. But yeah, I think there's that Section 106 process that we would have to finish up. And we still have activities in the NEPA process that this really truly informs that we need to finish up to.
And I saw a flash on, but is John?
Yeah, this is John Schick. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, you guys are both accurate. I mean, there's a Section 106 process that needs to be worked through. The bridge is, it's on the National Register. Therefore, it's, protected under the National Historic Preservation Act, but it also is protected under Section 4F of the Transportation Act. But to move forward, if Mcclay was removed, correct, we'd have to work through the adverse effects of that, and there is a process in place that MDT has in terms of mitigation and the Adopt a Bridge process. And so moving forward, as kind of an informational purposes, we meet with the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation to kind of step through the process, just to kind of allow them to hear the project and provide comment or not. But then we'd also have to work through the Section 4F process prior to finalizing the environmental document.
Thanks.
And Juan, could I ask John a question?
Yeah, please do.
Look, John, in that Section 106 process, is there opportunity for the public to be involved? How does that work? What's that process like?
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, I mean, currently the concerned parties are involved. They've been granted what's called consulting party status. So the Mcclay Bridge Alliance and the Bitterroot Bridges Coalition on either side of the topic are involved in the process. So comments have been submitted on both parties, and those are all considered as Federal Highways moves forward with the decision. And so that there's nothing precluding further comment to be submitted, And those parties would all be privy to the forthcoming presentation with the ACHP.
Thank you.
How are you guys feeling?
What do you think, Juanita?
Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier. We have a very specific, narrow decision in front of us, and the matrix Shane and Dustin provided was pretty overwhelming, or overwhelming in the sense that it was very clear that the bridge needs to come out if South Avenue, Mcclay Bridge needs to come out if South Avenue is built.
Yes.
I concur.
So you got a decision, Shane.
Yeah, and none of this diminishes all of the heartfelt feelings and impacts that this brings with it, articulated today.
Well, I appreciate you guys listening and making a decision or providing that recommendation, I guess. Even though this is a challenging topic, I wish they were easier.
But this is what happens when a vibrant, dynamic community like ours is growing, and this is a reality, what we get to work with. So thank you all for being here, and thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I guess we're done.
Okay, there was no formal adjourning, but we're out. Okay, we're out.
Okay.
Josh, or
Yeah.
someone, this is Kristen Anderson, just for procedural purposes,
Yes.
do you need to make a motion in this case, given that you have in other situations or not?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Yeah, our public works staff asked for a recommendation, and we gave them our recommendation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, Kristen. Right.